Long before ice and snow defined its identity, the Arctic was a land of astonishing abundance, a vibrant world where forests stretched across vast expanses, rivers and wetlands teemed with life, and meadows bloomed under the glow of the midnight sun. Fossil evidence reveals an ecosystem brimming with giant herbivores, predators, birds, insects, and a multitude of plant species, from towering conifers to delicate flowering shrubs, all interconnected through intricate webs of life. In this prehistoric Arctic, rivers carved winding paths through marshes and glades, soil microbes and fungi fueled the growth of forests, and extreme seasonal light dictated behavior, reproduction, and survival. It was a realm of green expanses and hidden diversity, a world that challenges modern assumptions of the polar north as barren and inhospitable, offering a glimpse into a forgotten chapter of Earth's ecological history. The Arctic, before ice. Long before the Arctic became synonymous with glaciers and snow, it was a vibrant mosaic of life, a place where temperatures rivaled those of modern temperate regions. During the early Paleogene, roughly 66 to 23 million years ago, polar winters were brief, summers prolonged, and the environment supported dense forests that stretched across the high latitudes. Fossilized pollen, leaves, and wood fragments indicate that deciduous trees, conifers, and even early flowering plants flourished in regions that now experience months of darkness. The very concept of a frozen Arctic was inconceivable. The region was defined by warmth, sunlight, and unbroken expanses of green. Rivers meandered across this prehistoric landscape, carving valleys and creating freshwater habitats that teemed with life. Fossilized river sediments reveal the presence of crocodile-like reptiles, amphibians, and early freshwater fish that thrived alongside the forests. These waterways acted as arteries of biodiversity, linking isolated pockets of forest and allowing species to migrate, disperse, and adapt in ways impossible in today's fragmented polar zones. Nutrient-rich soils supported a profusion of plant life, which in turn provided sustenance for a remarkable variety of herbivorous mammals. The Arctic's topography offered a patchwork of microhabitats, each with its own climatic quirks. Low-lying river plains remained warmer in winter, while elevated areas provided refuges from seasonal flooding. Fossils indicate that some early mammals evolved adaptations unique to these northern landscapes, taking advantage of abundant resources without facing the severe pressures imposed by glacial conditions. Predators, meanwhile, exploited these corridors, their evolution shaped by prey availability and environmental diversity rather than the constraints of ice and cold. Forests of the prehistoric Arctic were both dense and towering. Conifers dominated the canopy, while deciduous species interspersed among them, shedding leaves during shorter winter periods. Mosses, ferns, and flowering plants formed thick understories, creating multi-layered habitats. These forests were dynamic ecosystems, with life flourishing in layers that ranged from the forest floor to the treetops. Insects thrived in enormous numbers, some reaching sizes far greater than their modern relatives, feeding on leaves, decaying plant matter, and smaller invertebrates. Climate reconstructions suggest that summer temperatures at the Arctic Circle could reach levels similar to those in present-day southern Europe, while winter temperatures remained mild enough to sustain year-round life. The prolonged summer sunlight encouraged continuous photosynthesis, supporting rapid plant growth and ensuring a steady food supply for herbivores. This energy flow allowed for the emergence of larger-bodied mammals, some comparable in size to small elephants, which grazed among the dense forests without threat from frozen landscapes. Marine life along the Arctic coasts was equally remarkable. Warm ocean currents bathed the polar seas, creating environments suitable for early whales, sharks, and bony fish. Fossil assemblages show the presence of mollusks, rays, and predatory fish that thrived under conditions that would today be intolerable for such species. The circulation of these waters, influenced by the positions of continents and the dynamics of ocean currents, funneled heat northward, reinforcing the verdant terrestrial ecosystems and contributing to the Arctic's extraordinary biodiversity. Even in winter, when darkness reigned for extended periods, life persisted in remarkable ways. Fossil evidence indicates that some plants were capable of surviving months without sunlight, storing energy in roots and buds to re-emerge during the brief but intense summer. Mammals and reptiles also displayed adaptations to seasonal light extremes, with behavioral patterns designed to cope with long nights and prolonged periods of activity in summer. These adaptations reveal a world where life was resilient, flexible, and uniquely tuned to polar conditions that defy modern expectations. The presence of large predators in the Arctic provides a glimpse into the balance of ancient ecosystems. Apex carnivores patrolled riverbanks and forest edges, hunting mammals, reptiles, and birds that populated the region. Fossilized footprints, teeth, and skeletal remains allow scientists to reconstruct hunting strategies, social behaviors, and dietary preferences, offering insight into an Arctic teeming with dynamic interactions rather than the static, frozen landscapes we associate with polar regions today. Volcanic activity and shifting tectonics subtly influenced Arctic ecosystems, shaping mountains, river paths, and soil fertility. Periodic eruptions enriched soils with minerals, fueling plant growth, while tectonic uplifts created new habitats and isolated populations, driving evolutionary divergence. Fossil evidence points to rapid bursts of diversification among both flora and fauna in response to these geological events, underscoring the connection between Earth's internal forces and the flourishing of life. The Arctic of this era was not only green but astonishingly diverse. Insects, small reptiles, birds, and mammals coexisted in dense, multi-layered habitats, while aquatic environments hosted their own specialized communities. The interaction between land and water, forest and river, predator and prey, created ecosystems of unparalleled complexity, demonstrating that high latitudes were once sites of evolutionary experimentation and ecological richness, rather than barren extremes. Understanding this prehistoric Arctic offers more than just a glimpse into the past. It provides a window into the potential of life under conditions of warmth and abundant resources at high latitudes. Fossil records, geological studies, and climate reconstructions reveal a world in constant flux, yet consistently capable of supporting remarkable ecosystems. In this green Arctic, life did not merely endure, it thrived, challenging modern preconceptions of what the polar regions could sustain: polar forests and river valleys. The prehistoric Arctic forests were a breathtaking tableau, unlike any modern polar ecosystem. Towering conifers dominated the landscape, their thick, resinous trunks rising above a dense canopy that filtered sunlight onto the forest floor. Interspersed among these giants, deciduous trees added variety to the ecosystem, shedding their leaves during brief winters, yet maintaining a remarkable resilience to polar darkness. These forests were layered and complex, with ferns, mosses, and early flowering plants carpeting the ground, creating rich niches for insects, small mammals, and reptiles. Seasonal rhythms dictated life here, but the long polar days of summer offered extended opportunities for photosynthesis, allowing the flora to grow with astonishing speed and vigor. Rivers cut through these ancient forests like lifelines, their waters warm and clear, fed by rainfall and snowmelt from distant uplands. Along their banks, crocodile-like reptiles lurked beneath overhanging vegetation, waiting to ambush unsuspecting prey. Turtles and amphibians thrived in the slow-moving waters, while fish populations flourished in the nutrient-rich streams. These waterways provided not only sustenance, but also migration routes, linking disparate habitats and allowing species to disperse across vast polar landscapes. The interaction of land and water created dynamic ecotones, where terrestrial and aquatic life merged in intricate webs of survival. The soil beneath the Arctic canopy was unusually fertile for such high latitudes, enriched over millennia by decaying plant matter and periodic volcanic ash deposits. This richness allowed for rapid regrowth after seasonal diebacks and provided a stable foundation for diverse plant communities. Roots entwined beneath the surface, stabilizing riverbanks and preventing erosion, while fallen logs became microhabitats, sheltering insects and small vertebrates. The very structure of the forest reflected a balance between decay and renewal, an intricate system sustaining life at multiple levels. Herbivorous mammals were abundant, taking full advantage of the forest bounty. Fossilized bones indicate species ranging from small, deer-like animals to massive creatures approaching the size of modern elephants. Their diets varied from browsing leaves and soft shoots to grazing on mosses and ferns, and their presence shaped forest structure through selective feeding. These herbivores, in turn, supported a host of predators, from agile carnivores resembling modern cats to giant, now extinct species capable of hunting in packs or ambushing solitary prey. The forest was alive with constant movement, a theatre of survival where predator and prey engaged in perpetual adaptation. Insects played a central role in these ecosystems, often reaching sizes larger than their modern descendants. Fossilized wings and exoskeletons reveal beetles, dragonflies, and early butterflies, all thriving under the intense summer sunlight. Pollination, decomposition, and predation were ongoing processes, driving nutrient cycling and ecological stability. The sheer abundance of insect life provided sustenance for birds, small mammals, and reptiles, creating layers of interdependence that sustained the forests across seasons. Birds were prolific, with species both migratory and resident taking advantage of the extended daylight. Fossils show that many birds nested in trees or along riverbanks, feeding on fish, insects, and small mammals. The diversity of avian life in the Arctic suggests that these forests were not merely refuges, but active centres of reproduction, feeding, and territorial behaviour. Migration patterns, though likely less complex than in modern times, connected polar populations to more temperate regions, demonstrating the Arctic's role as a critical node in the broader prehistoric biosphere. The forests were punctuated by occasional open glades where sunlight reached the ground unfiltered, fostering a different suite of plants and attracting herbivores. These openings also created hunting grounds for predators, who relied on sight and speed to capture prey in the sparse vegetation. Seasonal flooding sometimes reshaped these glades, depositing fresh sediment and nutrients, which in turn stimulated plant regrowth. The constant interplay of canopy and clearing maintained habitat heterogeneity, a vital factor in the Arctic's remarkable biodiversity. Aquatic life within the rivers mirrored the richness on land. Early freshwater fish, ranging from small schooling species to predatory forms, thrived in the calm waters. Turtles and amphibians utilized both aquatic and terrestrial zones, while semi-aquatic reptiles took advantage of riverbanks to bask and hunt. Fossilized remains suggest that some of these species may have undertaken seasonal movements, navigating rivers and streams in search of food and mating grounds. The rivers were not merely conduits of water, they were arteries of life, connecting ecosystems and sustaining species across generations. Seasonal changes, though less extreme than today, shaped the rhythm of life. Winters brought prolonged darkness, forcing plants and animals to rely on stored energy. Many mammals developed thick coats and fat reserves, while reptiles likely entered periods of dormancy or reduced activity. When the sun returned, the Arctic exploded with growth and movement. Leaves unfurled, streams swelled, and animals foraged with renewed vigor. This cyclical pattern fostered evolutionary adaptations unique to the polar environment, producing species capable of thriving where few others could. Even within these forests, evidence of environmental stresses exists. Occasional volcanic eruptions and tectonic activity reshaped landscapes, altering river courses and creating new habitats. Fires, likely sparked by lightning, periodically swept through the undergrowth, creating open spaces and stimulating the germination of certain plants. These disturbances, while destructive in the short term, contributed to long-term ecological resilience, allowing forests to regenerate and species to diversify. The Arctic was a landscape of constant change, yet life adapted continuously to these shifting conditions. The prehistoric Arctic forests were far more than a collection of trees and rivers. They were thriving, interconnected systems capable of supporting vast arrays of life. From towering conifers to minute insects, from massive herbivores to stealthy predators, every organism played a role in maintaining balance. Fossil evidence, sedimentary analysis, and climate reconstructions reveal a region of astonishing abundance. A green Arctic that challenges our understanding of what life could endure near the poles. In these forests and river valleys, the story of Arctic life unfolds not as a tale of survival against ice, but as a testament to adaptation, diversity, and the unexpected potential of polar ecosystems. Giants of the Arctic, mammals and megafauna. The prehistoric Arctic was home to giants, creatures whose size and presence would dwarf the mammals of today. Fossil evidence indicates that herbivorous mammals, some approaching the size of small elephants, roamed freely among the polar forests. These colossal animals fed on a diverse diet of conifer needles, leaves, and ferns, their feeding behavior shaping the vegetation and influencing forest structure. Their immense size provided protection against predators, while also necessitating vast amounts of food, ensuring that Arctic ecosystems maintained high productivity to sustain such giants. Carnivorous mammals also reached remarkable sizes, with apex predators adapted to the unique demands of high-latitude life. Fossilized teeth and skeletal remains suggest formidable hunting abilities, from stealth and ambush to endurance-based pursuit. These predators were not only essential to controlling herbivore populations, but also influenced evolutionary pathways, driving the development of speed, cunning, and social strategies among prey species. The dynamic interaction between predators and prey created a constant pressure for adaptation, producing ecosystems that were both resilient and finely tuned. Smaller mammals thrived in the understory and along river valleys, filling ecological niches overlooked by their larger counterparts. Rodents, early carnivores, and insectivorous species exploited microhabitats, feeding on seeds, insects, and small vertebrates. Fossil burrows and nests provide evidence of complex social structures and survival strategies that allowed these creatures to endure seasonal darkness and occasional cold spells. The presence of both large and small mammals illustrates the Arctic's ecological diversity, where multiple layers of life coexisted in balanced complexity. The Arctic's giant herbivores were not mere grazers, they were ecosystem engineers. By trampling vegetation, opening pathways through forests, and creating wallows, they influenced the distribution of plants and the flow of rivers. Their movements facilitated seed dispersal over long distances, shaping the composition of forests and creating opportunities for new species to colonize emerging habitats. In this way, megafauna were agents of ecological change, actively participating in the creation and maintenance of Arctic ecosystems rather than existing passively within them. Seasonal behaviors were critical for survival. Many mammals migrated along river valleys and through forested corridors, tracking the availability of food and shelter. Fossilized trackways suggest coordinated movements, hinting at social structures and herd dynamics similar to those seen in modern ungulates. Predators likely followed these migrations, timing their hunting strategies to the movement of prey, creating a rhythm of life that pulsed across the Arctic landscape in response to seasonal variations. Reproductive strategies also reveal remarkable adaptations. Large herbivores gave birth during the brief summer months, taking advantage of abundant vegetation to support lactation and growth. Predators synchronized reproduction to prey availability, ensuring that offspring emerged during periods of resource abundance. Even small mammals adjusted reproductive timing to the extreme polar light cycles, highlighting the Arctic's influence on life history strategies. The success of these strategies underlines the Arctic's role as a natural laboratory for evolutionary innovation. Evidence from fossilized remains also indicates that some Arctic mammals exhibited early forms of insulation to cope with seasonal darkness and cooler temperatures. Dense fur, fat deposits, and body mass adaptations provided warmth, while behavioral strategies such as huddling, burrowing, and seasonal dormancy complemented physiological adaptations. These features foreshadowed traits seen in later Ice Age megafauna, demonstrating that the Arctic served as an incubator for survival mechanisms in extreme environments. The interaction between land and aquatic ecosystems supported a range of semi-aquatic mammals. Early beaver-like creatures, otter relatives, and other semi-aquatic species exploited rivers, lakes, and wetlands for food, building lodges, burrows, and dens that contributed to ecosystem engineering. These animals provided a link between aquatic and terrestrial food webs, ensuring that energy flowed efficiently across habitats. Their presence underscores the interconnectedness of Arctic ecosystems, where species relied on multiple environmental zones for survival. Fossil evidence suggests that the Arctic supported predator guilds with diverse hunting strategies. Some predators were ambush hunters, relying on dense forest cover, while others pursued prey across open glades or river corridors. This variation allowed multiple species to coexist without direct competition, maintaining high biodiversity and dynamic food webs. The presence of these guilds reveals a level of ecological sophistication that challenges assumptions about prehistoric polar ecosystems being simplistic or sparse. The Arctic's megafauna were also influenced by climatic fluctuations, with periods of warming allowing expansion of forests and food sources, and cooler phases forcing adaptations or migrations. Fossil layers indicate cycles of population expansion and contraction, highlighting the sensitivity of these giants to environmental change. These cycles created opportunities for evolutionary experimentation, resulting in diverse morphologies, behaviors, and ecological roles among Arctic mammals. The Arctic of this era was a world where size and adaptation defined survival. The coexistence of massive herbivores, formidable predators, and myriad smaller mammals created ecosystems of unparalleled complexity. By examining the fossil record, paleontologists reconstruct a land teeming with life, movement, and intricate interactions. A green Arctic where giants walked beneath endless polar sunlight, reshaping the environment as they lived and died, leaving enduring imprints on Earth's history. Rivers and lakes of the Arctic. The Arctic's rivers and lakes were lifelines that sustained ecosystems far beyond their banks. These freshwater systems, fed by rainfall, melting snow, and distant uplands, meandered through forests, meadows, and glacial valleys, forming complex networks of habitats. Fossilized sediments reveal a dynamic interplay of erosion, deposition, and nutrient cycling, creating conditions that allowed both plants and animals to thrive. Shallow lakes provided abundant sunlight for aquatic vegetation, while deeper waters offered refuge for fish and amphibians, creating vertical layers of life that mirrored the complexity of surrounding terrestrial forests. Fish were diverse and abundant, occupying niches from the shallow littoral zones to deeper channels. Early freshwater species evolved specialized adaptations to cope with seasonal temperature fluctuations and variable daylight. Fossilized remains show predatory fish with sharp teeth and streamlined bodies, suggesting agile hunters capable of pursuing smaller prey across lakes and rivers. Schools of herbivorous fish likely grazed on algae and aquatic plants, maintaining balance within these ecosystems and supporting predators from fish to birds and semi-aquatic mammals. Amphibians and turtles thrived along riverbanks and lake edges, exploiting both terrestrial and aquatic habitats. Fossilized skeletons indicate that some species were capable of long-distance movement between water bodies, suggesting an early form of dispersal strategy that allowed colonization of new habitats. These creatures contributed to nutrient cycling by consuming plant matter and invertebrates, while simultaneously serving as prey for larger predators, forming intricate food webs that sustained high biodiversity in polar conditions. Crocodile-like reptiles patrolled the rivers, utilizing their ambush strategies to capture fish, amphibians, and small mammals. Fossil evidence suggests some of these species were remarkably large, capable of exerting significant predation pressure on riverine ecosystems. Their presence shaped the behavior of prey species, driving adaptations such as camouflage, burrowing, and nocturnal activity. These apex aquatic predators reinforced the ecological balance of rivers and lakes, illustrating the interconnectedness of aquatic and terrestrial life. Riverine vegetation was equally crucial to these ecosystems. Riparian plants stabilized banks, filtered sediments, and provided cover for animals moving through the landscape. Fallen logs and leaf litter created microhabitats for insects, amphibians, and small mammals, while submerged plant matter supplied oxygen and food for aquatic communities. Seasonal flooding, common in the Arctic's warm periods, redistributed nutrients across the floodplains, supporting rapid plant growth and sustaining herbivorous populations. Birds, both migratory and resident, utilized rivers and lakes for feeding, nesting, and breeding. Fossilized remains of early ducks, shorebirds, and predatory birds indicate that these waterways provided year-round resources. Some species likely nested in trees along the banks, while others built nests in shallow waters or on sandy shores. The abundance of insects, fish, and small mammals along these freshwater systems created a rich feeding ground that supported a diverse avian community. Semi-aquatic mammals, including early beaver-like species and otter relatives, played an important role in shaping river and lake environments. By constructing burrows, lodges, and dams, they altered water flow, created new habitats for other species, and influenced sediment deposition. These animals also contributed to the dispersal of plant seeds and the cycling of nutrients, linking aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems in a continuous web of interaction. Seasonal changes influenced aquatic ecosystems as profoundly as terrestrial ones. Winters brought prolonged darkness, lowering temperatures and reducing primary productivity, while summer sunlight stimulated plant growth, insect hatching, and fish reproduction. Some species likely entered periods of dormancy or reduced activity during the dark months, while others adapted behaviors to exploit limited resources. This cyclical pattern required precise timing in life histories and fostered evolutionary strategies unique to high-latitude freshwater systems. Floodplains adjacent to rivers supported dense plant communities that attracted herbivores. Fossilized footprints indicate that large mammals traversed these areas regularly, feeding on lush vegetation and stirring sediments, which in turn benefited aquatic organisms. These interactions highlight the connection between land and water, illustrating that rivers and lakes were not isolated habitats, but integral parts of the Arctic's broader ecological network. Lakes often served as refuge during environmental stress, providing stable conditions during periods of climatic fluctuation. Fossil layers suggest that water levels and temperatures varied over millennia, influencing species composition and driving adaptation. Aquatic ecosystems responded to these changes with resilience, maintaining biodiversity and ecological function even in the face of shifting climates. This adaptability reflects the Arctic's role as both a sanctuary and a testing ground for life under extreme seasonal conditions. Rivers and lakes in the prehistoric Arctic were more than mere bodies of water. They were engines of life, shaping the distribution of species, facilitating evolutionary innovation, and connecting forests, meadows, and wetlands. Fossil evidence, combined with sedimentary and botanical analysis, paints a picture of waterways teeming with activity and complexity, illustrating how freshwater environments contributed to the abundance and diversity of polar life in ways that remain astonishing even today. Insects, birds, and reptiles of the Arctic. Insects were the hidden backbone of the prehistoric Arctic, an unseen army driving pollination, decomposition, and nutrient cycling across forests and river valleys. Fossilized exoskeletons reveal beetles, dragonflies, and giant flies of immense size, many exceeding the proportions of their modern relatives. The extended daylight of Arctic summers allowed these insects to thrive, producing multiple generations within a single season and sustaining predator species ranging from small mammals to amphibians. Their presence was essential, linking plant reproduction to the survival of herbivores and creating a thriving web of interdependence. Dragonflies and other flying insects dominated the skies over rivers and wetlands, preying on smaller insects and providing sustenance for birds and reptiles. Some species likely reached wingspans that would appear exaggerated to modern observers, taking advantage of oxygen-rich atmospheres that supported larger body sizes. These aerial hunters regulated the populations of smaller insects, preventing outbreaks that might have destabilized fragile ecosystems. Their patterns of emergence and migration were closely tied to seasonal sunlight and water availability, highlighting the Arctic's influence on life cycles. Beetles and ground-dwelling insects shaped forest floors in profound ways. By breaking down leaf litter, feeding on decaying wood, and tunneling through soils, they enriched the substrate and facilitated plant growth. Fossilized tunnels, burrows, and coprolites indicate that these small creatures maintained ecological processes critical for the entire forest. Even the smallest insects had outsized impacts, proving that the Arctic's ecological complexity extended to every level of life, from the canopy to the soil. Birds were among the most mobile components of Arctic ecosystems, exploiting both terrestrial and aquatic habitats for feeding, nesting, and breeding. Fossilized remains of early ducks, wading birds, and predatory species suggest highly specialized adaptations to polar life. Some birds nested in trees along riverbanks, while others relied on open meadows or lakeshores for breeding. The Arctic provided ample resources during summer, allowing rapid growth and reproduction, while migrations likely linked polar populations with temperate ecosystems further south. Predatory birds contributed to the regulation of small mammals, reptiles, and large insects. Fossilized talons, beaks, and wing bones suggest hunting strategies that included aerial dives, stealth approaches, and ambush tactics from trees or cliffs. These birds were not merely passive inhabitants. They actively shaped food webs, influencing the behavior, distribution, and evolution of prey species. Their success depended on both the abundance of food and the availability of nesting sites, reflecting the Arctic's complex spatial and temporal habitat patterns. Reptiles, often overlooked in discussions of polar life, flourished in the prehistoric Arctic. Crocodile-like species inhabited rivers, lakes, and wetlands, while turtles, lizards, and early snakes explored both terrestrial and aquatic zones. Fossil evidence indicates that some reptiles achieved remarkable size and displayed behavioral adaptations to cope with seasonal light fluctuations. Semi-aquatic reptiles utilized riverbanks for basking, nesting, and hunting, while terrestrial species exploited forest floors and glades. These reptiles contributed to the food web both as predators and prey, maintaining ecological balance. Amphibians complemented reptilian diversity, inhabiting ponds, streams, and moist forest floors. Fossilized skeletons reveal a variety of species adapted to both water and land, with life cycles attuned to seasonal patterns. Breeding likely occurred during the warm months, while juveniles developed rapidly to exploit short periods of food abundance. Their presence helped control insect populations and supported higher trophic levels, demonstrating the importance of small-bodied vertebrates in Arctic food webs. Interactions among insects, birds, and reptiles were intricate. Birds fed on insects emerging from forest litter, while reptiles hunted both insects and small birds, creating layered predator-prey relationships. In turn, insect abundance shaped plant reproduction, ensuring that forests and wetlands remained productive. These connections illustrate a finely tuned ecosystem where every organism, regardless of size, contributed to the Arctic's remarkable biodiversity. Seasonal changes presented unique challenges. Extended periods of darkness and cold during winter required behavioral and physiological adaptations across all species. Birds migrated or entered periods of torpor, insects overwintered as eggs or larvae, and reptiles sought shelter in burrows or submerged refuges. The timing of activity, reproduction, and growth was intricately linked to sunlight, temperature, and food availability, demonstrating that Arctic life had evolved sophisticated strategies for coping with extreme seasonal variation. The combined presence of insects, birds, and reptiles created ecosystems that were both resilient and dynamic. Fossilized evidence of nesting sites, burrows, and feeding traces reveals continuous interactions that sustained high biodiversity. The Arctic's small and mobile species were as vital to ecosystem stability as the massive mammals, forming networks of dependence that ensured energy flow and nutrient cycling throughout the landscape. These organisms turned rivers, forests, and wetlands into living laboratories of adaptation. Arctic insects, birds, and reptiles exemplify the surprising richness of polar life in a prehistoric context. Their diversity, abundance, and ecological roles challenge modern perceptions of high-latitude environments as marginal or inhospitable. Instead, they reveal a landscape where even the smallest creatures played critical roles, sustaining complex food webs and facilitating the growth of lush forests, thriving rivers, and interconnected habitats. Fossil evidence preserves these stories, offering glimpses of a green Arctic teeming with motion, energy, and life. Prehistoric Arctic marine life. The seas of the prehistoric Arctic were far warmer and more biologically active than the icy waters of today. Fossil evidence suggests that polar oceans hosted thriving communities of fish, mollusks, and crustaceans, supported by currents that carried tropical warmth northward. Coral-like structures and early shell beds reveal that marine life flourished along coastlines, creating intricate ecosystems of reefs, lagoons, and tidal flats. These waters sustained food chains that stretched from microscopic plankton to apex predators, shaping both marine and terrestrial life along the Arctic margins. Fish dominated the Arctic marine ecosystems, ranging from small schooling species to large predatory forms. Fossilized teeth, scales, and skeletal fragments indicate that many species were well adapted to temperate polar waters, capable of exploiting seasonal productivity. Predatory fish hunted in coordinated schools or ambushed prey, while herbivorous species grazed on algae and seafloor vegetation. The abundance of fish not only supported larger marine predators, but also attracted birds and semi-aquatic mammals along coastlines and river mouths. Sharks were present in these ancient Arctic waters, including species with formidable teeth and predatory adaptations. Fossilized remains suggest that they occupied a variety of niches, from fast-moving hunters in open waters to ambush predators near reefs and estuaries. Rays and skates added to the diversity, feeding on mollusks and crustaceans and creating benthic interactions that shaped the seafloor. Together, these predatory species maintained a balance in fish populations and contributed to the complexity of Arctic marine food webs. Marine reptiles added another layer to the ecosystem. Crocodile-like species ventured into coastal waters, hunting fish, mollusks, and small mammals near river mouths. Early sea turtles navigated estuaries and shallow bays, feeding on plants and invertebrates. Fossilized skeletal remains indicate that some species reached impressive sizes and possessed adaptations for swimming in cooler polar waters, such as powerful limbs and streamlined bodies. These reptiles were integral to marine food webs, linking terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. Mollusks, including clams, snails, and bivalves, formed dense beds along shorelines and in shallow waters. Fossilized shells reveal rapid growth and high diversity, indicating stable and productive environments. These creatures filtered nutrients from water, stabilized sediments, and provided food for a variety of predators. Their presence illustrates the ecological importance of primary consumers in maintaining the health and structure of marine ecosystems. Crustaceans, from shrimp-like species to primitive crabs, thrived in river mouths, tidal flats, and estuaries. Fossilized exoskeletons suggest they were abundant and highly active, participating in nutrient cycling and serving as prey for both fish and reptiles. Their burrowing and scavenging behavior helped aerate sediments and promote the growth of benthic vegetation, demonstrating that even small organisms had outsized impacts on Arctic marine ecosystems. Planktonic life formed the foundation of Arctic marine productivity. Fossilized microfossils indicate a rich diversity of diatoms, foraminifera, and other planktonic organisms, which sustained herbivorous fish and filter-feeding invertebrates. Seasonal sunlight influenced plankton blooms, creating pulses of food that rippled up the food chain. These microscopic organisms were critical to the Arctic's ecological balance, linking environmental conditions to the success of larger species across the ecosystem. Birds exploited marine environments extensively, feeding on fish, mollusks, and invertebrates. Fossilized wings, beaks, and claws suggest that some species specialized in plunge diving, while others scavenged along beaches and tidal flats. Seabirds nested on cliffs, rocky outcrops, and shoreline vegetation, relying on abundant marine resources for raising chicks. Their presence highlights the interconnectedness of terrestrial and aquatic life, as marine productivity directly supported polar biodiversity on land. Semi-aquatic mammals, including early otters and beaver-like species, foraged along coastlines and river mouths, feeding on fish, mollusks, and aquatic plants. Fossilized burrows and skeletal remains indicate that these animals constructed dens and lodges, modifying habitats and creating microenvironments for other species. Their activities illustrate how mammalian behavior could influence marine and freshwater ecosystems simultaneously, reinforcing the links between land and water. Climate fluctuations affected Arctic marine environments in subtle yet profound ways. Rising sea levels expanded shallow coastal habitats, while cooler periods reduced water temperatures and altered currents. These changes influenced species distribution, reproductive cycles, and food availability, creating pulses of adaptation and migration. Fossil layers reveal repeated patterns of expansion, contraction, and replacement among marine species, demonstrating the sensitivity of Arctic oceans to environmental shifts. The prehistoric Arctic oceans were thriving, complex systems teeming with life from the smallest plankton to the largest predators. Rivers, estuaries, and open waters connected marine and terrestrial ecosystems, supporting interactions between fish, birds, mammals, and reptiles. Fossil evidence preserves the diversity and abundance of these habitats, revealing a polar ocean full of movement, energy, and ecological richness. These seas were not marginal or inhospitable. They were central to the vitality of the Arctic landscape and the evolutionary history of the region. Climate shifts and forest retreat. The lush Arctic forests that once stretched to the polar circle were not eternal. They faced profound transformations as Earth's climate gradually shifted. During the late Eocene and into the Oligocene, global temperatures began a slow decline, driven by changes in atmospheric carbon dioxide, continental drift, and oceanic circulation patterns. Fossilized pollen and plant assemblages reveal a gradual replacement of dense forests with more open woodlands and tundra-like vegetation. Species that had once thrived under long summers and mild winters were forced to adapt, migrate, or disappear entirely, reshaping the Arctic landscape across millions of years. Rivers and lakes mirrored these terrestrial changes. Water levels fluctuated in response to shrinking forests and altered precipitation patterns, impacting the aquatic ecosystems that had previously teemed with fish, amphibians, and semi-aquatic reptiles. Some freshwater species were resilient, moving between habitats or adjusting reproductive strategies to match seasonal availability, while others vanished as conditions exceeded their physiological tolerances. These transformations demonstrate that Arctic ecosystems were finely tuned to climate, with even slight shifts having cascading ecological effects. Herbivorous mammals faced the challenge of dwindling vegetation. As forests retreated, food became scarcer, forcing large herbivores to expand their ranges and rely on less nutritious plants. Fossil evidence indicates a decline in certain megafauna populations, coinciding with the spread of open landscapes dominated by shrubs, grasses, and hardy conifers. Predators followed herbivores, tracking their movements across increasingly fragmented habitats. The result was a period of heightened competition, adaptation, and selective pressure that shaped the evolutionary trajectories of Arctic mammals. Insect populations were affected as well, with long-lived species adapting to shorter summers and cooler temperatures. Fossilized wings and larvae suggest that some insects entered extended periods of dormancy to survive prolonged darkness, while others evolved smaller sizes or shifted diets to match changing plant availability. These subtle changes illustrate how climate shifts influenced life at all levels of the food web, from the tiniest pollinators to apex predators, reinforcing the Arctic's sensitivity to environmental fluctuations. Birds, highly mobile yet dependent on resources, adjusted migratory patterns and breeding schedules in response to these changes. Fossil evidence shows alterations in nesting sites, with some species moving further south or to sheltered river valleys to maintain access to food. Polar conditions no longer guaranteed abundant summer resources, so survival depended on flexibility and timing. Birds became essential indicators of ecological change, their presence or absence reflecting the broader health of Arctic habitats. Reptiles and amphibians were particularly vulnerable to climate cooling. Fossil records suggest that crocodile-like reptiles retreated from higher latitudes, while turtles and amphibians persisted only in isolated refuges with sufficient warmth and food. The loss of these species altered predator-prey dynamics, reshaping ecosystems that had been highly interconnected. These shifts highlight the delicate balance between climate, physiology, and survival in the Arctic environment. Marine ecosystems responded to climatic cooling with changes in ocean currents, sea surface temperatures, and nutrient distribution. Shallow coastal habitats contracted, and certain species of fish, mollusks, and marine reptiles disappeared from the fossil record. Cold-adapted species began to emerge, foreshadowing the fauna of later Arctic seas. The interplay between ocean and terrestrial change demonstrates that climate shifts were not isolated events, but connected processes influencing the entire Arctic biosphere. Permafrost began forming in patches as temperatures dropped, stabilizing sediments, but also altering drainage patterns and soil fertility. Rivers became more prone to seasonal freezing, and wetlands shrank in extent. These physical changes had profound ecological consequences, affecting everything from plant distribution to animal movement. Habitats that had been continuous were now fragmented, forcing adaptation or migration for survival. The Arctic's geological record preserves this story in layered sediments, ice wedges, and fossilized soils. Fire regimes shifted in response to cooler, drier conditions. Lightning strikes still ignited occasional forest fires, but their frequency and intensity declined. This reduction allowed slower-growing plant species to establish dominance, contributing to the transformation of dense forests into sparser woodlands. At the same time, nutrient cycling changed, influencing the productivity of both terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. The combined effects of fire, cooling, and shifting hydrology reshaped the Arctic into a mosaic of forests, shrubs, and tundra-like zones. Human-like adaptations were not yet present, but animals evolved strategies in response to environmental instability. Herbivores developed migration routes across increasingly open landscapes. Predators adjusted hunting behaviors, and small mammals diversified into microhabitats that provided shelter and resources. Fossil evidence reveals evolutionary experimentation during this period, with new morphologies and behaviors emerging as species sought to survive in a world of cooling temperatures and retreating forests. The retreat of Arctic forests marked a turning point in polar ecological history. Rich, continuous ecosystems gave way to patchy woodlands and tundra, while rivers, lakes, and wetlands transformed under changing climatic conditions. The fossils, sediments, and pollen left behind record a complex narrative of adaptation, migration, and ecological reorganization. Life persisted, evolved, and moved in response to a shifting Arctic, laying the groundwork for the ice-dominated landscapes that would eventually define the polar north. Polar giants, herbivores of a green Arctic. The prehistoric Arctic, bathed in long summer sunlight, was home to enormous herbivores that moved gracefully through lush forests and open glades. Fossil evidence indicates creatures similar in size to modern elephants, as well as smaller deer-like species grazed upon abundant conifers, ferns, and flowering plants. These animals were not only impressive in size but also shaped the environment itself, trampling vegetation, dispersing seeds, and maintaining open corridors through dense forests, creating spaces that allowed other species to thrive. Giant herbivores, such as early relatives of tapirs or large browsing mammals, fed on tree leaves, shrubs, and aquatic plants along riverbanks. Their large bodies required constant foraging, driving daily migrations across forested valleys and river floodplains. Fossilized footprints and trackways suggest coordinated herd behavior, with older individuals guiding the young to seasonal feeding grounds. The presence of such megaherbivores reflects the richness of vegetation which could support animals of incredible size at such high latitudes. Smaller herbivores were abundant as well, filling niches that complemented their larger relatives. Deer-like mammals grazed on grasses and mosses in open glades, while rodent-like species gnawed on roots and seeds under the forest canopy. Fossilized burrows indicate intricate underground networks, offering protection from predators and seasonal changes. These smaller mammals played a crucial role in nutrient cycling, turning leaf litter and soil into fertile ground that sustained the plants upon which the giants depended. Herbivorous reptiles added another layer of diversity. Fossil records show turtle species that fed on aquatic vegetation and small amphibians, as well as large crocodile-like creatures that inhabited rivers and lakes, consuming both plant and animal matter. These reptiles complemented mammalian herbivores, contributing to the complex dynamics of Arctic ecosystems and influencing the structure of riverine and wetland habitats. Seasonal rhythms shaped herbivore behavior profoundly. The long summer days allowed constant feeding and growth, ensuring that animals stored sufficient fat and energy for the brief winter. Fossilized stomach contents reveal diets rich in leaves, ferns, and aquatic plants, reflecting the Arctic's unusually fertile environment. Migration routes were likely timed to follow the blooming of key plant species, with herbivores traversing forests, meadows, and floodplains to maximize access to food. River valleys served as lifelines for these giants, providing water, shelter, and a diverse array of vegetation. Fossilized bones along ancient riverbeds indicate that herbivores congregated near rivers during summer, feeding on riparian plants and grasses. Seasonal flooding created nutrient-rich soils, encouraging rapid plant regrowth and sustaining both resident and migratory herbivores. The interaction between rivers and forested valleys created dynamic ecosystems capable of supporting large populations of megaherbivores. Floodplains also facilitated social interactions among herbivores. Trackways and fossilized footprints suggest that herds moved collectively, with dominant individuals leading and protecting the group. These movements allowed herbivores to avoid overgrazing specific areas while distributing seeds and plant matter across the landscape. By shaping both vegetation and terrain, herbivores became ecosystem engineers, sustaining the lush, green Arctic they inhabited. Insects and small invertebrates were drawn to herbivore populations. Grazing mammals disturbed soil and vegetation, exposing insects and larvae, which in turn became prey for birds and reptiles. Coprolite analysis reveals that herbivores inadvertently redistributed nutrients, seeds, and microorganisms through their waste, further enriching soils and promoting plant diversity. The interplay between herbivores and invertebrates highlights the Arctic's complex web of interactions and demonstrates the interdependence of species. The combination of large and small herbivores supported a wide variety of predators, creating balance in the ecosystem. Fossil evidence of tooth marks and skeletal damage indicates that predator-prey interactions were active and dynamic, though the sheer abundance of vegetation allowed herbivores to thrive without excessive predation. Open glades and river corridors provided escape routes and feeding grounds, ensuring survival for both the hunted and the hunters. Seasonal environmental changes required flexibility among Arctic herbivores. While winters were shorter than today, reduced daylight and cooler temperatures still necessitated energy storage, huddling for warmth, and selective feeding. Fossilized remains of fat deposits and limb structures suggest that some species were capable of moving long distances between forested refuges and open floodplains, ensuring access to food year-round. These adaptations reflect the Arctic's role as a rich but challenging environment. The prehistoric Arctic's herbivores illustrate a landscape teeming with life and ecological complexity. Giants roamed forests, smaller mammals filled niches beneath the canopy, and reptiles and insects complemented their activities, all sustained by fertile soils, abundant water, and an extended summer growing season. The green Arctic supported life on a scale unimaginable in today's frozen north, creating ecosystems of interaction, movement, and abundance that rivaled temperate and tropical regions elsewhere on Earth. Predators and small creatures, the balance of Arctic life. While giant herbivores dominated the prehistoric Arctic, predators maintained the delicate balance of these lush ecosystems. Fossil evidence shows a diversity of carnivorous mammals adapted to forests, rivers, and open glades. Early relatives of large cats, wolf-like canids, and bear-like predators relied on keen senses, speed, and strategy to hunt herbivores, ranging from small rodents to the young or weak members of massive herds. These predators not only controlled herbivore populations, but also influenced social behavior, migration, and herd structure, shaping Arctic ecology on multiple levels. Small carnivores complemented the apex predators, hunting insects, amphibians, and small mammals in forests and wetlands. Fossilized skulls and teeth indicate specialized adaptations for climbing, burrowing, and ambushing prey. These smaller hunters maintained population control among invertebrates and rodents, ensuring that no single species became dominant. The interplay between predators of different sizes illustrates a layered food web, with both large and small carnivores contributing to ecosystem stability. Reptilian predators were also significant. Crocodile-like species patrolled rivers and wetlands, preying on fish, amphibians, and even small mammals that approached the water. Fossilized jaws and limb bones indicate powerful ambush abilities and semi-aquatic adaptations. Some reptiles, like monitor lizard relatives, hunted along forest edges and glades, their movements complementing those of mammalian predators. These reptiles added both diversity and complexity to predator-prey dynamics, showing that the green Arctic supported multiple hunting strategies. Birds were integral to Arctic predation. Fossil evidence shows predatory species with sharp talons and hooked beaks hunting fish, amphibians, reptiles, and insects. Others scavenged carcasses left by larger predators or foraged along rivers and lakes, contributing to nutrient cycling. Nesting along riverbanks, cliffs, and trees, birds thrived in an environment where prey was abundant, and the extended daylight of summer allowed continuous feeding and rearing of young. The presence of birds highlights the multidimensionality of Arctic food webs, linking terrestrial, aquatic, and aerial ecosystems. Insects, though small, played a disproportionately important role in sustaining life. Beetles, dragonflies, and giant flies thrived in summer, pollinating plants, breaking down organic matter, and serving as prey for reptiles, birds, and small mammals. Fossilized exoskeletons suggest that some insects reached remarkable sizes, benefiting from high summer temperatures and abundant plant growth. Their activity enriched soils, aided plant reproduction, and fueled energy flow through Arctic ecosystems, proving that even the tiniest creatures were essential to ecological balance. Amphibians added another layer of predator-prey interaction. Frogs, salamanders, and early newt-like species fed on insects and other invertebrates, while themselves serving as prey for reptiles, birds, and small mammals. Fossilized skeletons indicate that these amphibians were abundant along rivers, lakes, and wetlands, exploiting moist microhabitats that were critical for reproduction and survival. Their life cycles were closely synchronized with seasonal warmth and summer rains, reflecting the Arctic's unique combination of extended daylight and ephemeral habitats. Semi-aquatic mammals contributed to both predation and ecosystem engineering. Early otters and beaver-like species hunted fish and aquatic invertebrates, while modifying waterways, creating lodges, channels, and burrows that influenced habitat structure. These animals provided food for larger predators and facilitated nutrient flow between aquatic and terrestrial environments. Fossil evidence suggests that their behaviors shaped wetland complexity, creating conditions that supported an abundance of birds, amphibians, and small mammals. Predation in the green Arctic was shaped by seasonality. The long polar summer allowed predators to hunt continuously, while the brief winter prompted strategic use of shelter, hibernation, or opportunistic feeding. Apex predators likely focused on the young, sick, or slow members of herbivore herds, while smaller carnivores shifted to alternative prey such as insects or amphibians. These strategies ensured that predation remained balanced, maintaining population stability and allowing ecosystems to flourish without overexploitation. Forest and river mosaics provided both hunting grounds and refuge. Dense foliage allowed ambush predators to stalk prey, while open glades and river valleys offered escape routes and grazing opportunities for herbivores. Fossilized trackways show coordinated movements among predators and prey, suggesting sophisticated interactions and behaviors shaped by the Arctic's abundant resources and varied terrain. The interplay of hunting, fleeing, and hiding created a dynamic equilibrium that supported high biodiversity across trophic levels. The Arctic's small creatures, rodents, insectivores, amphibians, and birds were indispensable in sustaining energy flow and maintaining ecological balance. Their populations were influenced by predator pressure, plant abundance, and seasonal cycles. Yet they persisted as vital connectors between plants, herbivores, and apex predators. Fossil evidence of burrows, nests, and feeding traces underscores their central role in linking multiple layers of Arctic ecosystems, revealing a complex network of interdependent species. Together, predators, herbivores, and small creatures formed a cohesive and resilient system. The green Arctic was not simply a land of giants. It was a rich mosaic of interactions, where every species, from massive herbivores to tiny insects, played a crucial role. Rivers, forests, wetlands, and glades teemed with activity, creating ecosystems of astonishing abundance and complexity. Fossils preserve this vivid portrait, offering a glimpse of a prehistoric Arctic that was vibrant, green, and alive in ways that challenge modern perceptions of polar environments. Polar forests, giants among trees. The prehistoric Arctic was covered by dense forests, dominated by towering conifers, broad-leaved deciduous trees, and ferns that carpeted the forest floor. Fossilized trunks and pollen indicate that some trees reached remarkable heights, forming a layered canopy that allowed sunlight to filter down in dappled patterns, supporting a rich understory of shrubs, mosses, and flowering plants. These forests were vibrant ecosystems where every layer from canopy to soil hosted specialized life forms, creating a vertical mosaic of activity and interaction. Canopy trees provided shelter and food for a variety of organisms. Large herbivores browsed leaves and branches, while birds nested among branches, feeding on insects and fruits. Fossilized impressions of leaves, cones, and branches suggest a high diversity of tree species, each contributing differently to habitat structure, nutrient cycling, and seasonal dynamics. The vertical complexity of these forests allowed multiple species to coexist, each occupying a distinct niche within the dense greenery. Beneath the towering trees, a thriving understory supported smaller plants, shrubs, and ferns. This layer offered food and refuge for herbivorous mammals, insects, and amphibians. Shade-tolerant flowering plants added colour and diversity, while mosses and liverworts helped retain moisture in the soil, creating microhabitats essential for survival. Fossilized pollen and plant fragments reveal intricate plant communities, highlighting the Arctic as an ecosystem capable of supporting high biodiversity despite its high latitude. Tree trunks were not merely structural elements, they were dynamic habitats. Epiphytic plants, climbing vines, and mosses colonized bark surfaces, while insects, spiders, and small reptiles used the trees as hunting grounds and refuges. Fossilized burrows and feeding traces in wood indicate that even decomposing trees played a vital ecological role, recycling nutrients and providing shelter for countless species. Forests were alive in every sense, with trees functioning as both habitat and resource. The seasonal rhythm of the Arctic influenced forest dynamics profoundly. During the long summer, continuous sunlight fueled rapid photosynthesis, allowing trees to grow, reproduce, and produce seeds at an accelerated pace. Short winters brought reduced light and cooler temperatures, yet forest inhabitants were adapted to this cycle, timing reproduction, foraging, and hibernation to coincide with periods of abundance. Fossils reveal growth rings that record these cycles, reflecting a landscape alive with seasonal energy. Fallen logs and leaf litter enriched the soil, providing habitat for fungi, insects, and small mammals. Decomposers broke down organic matter, releasing nutrients that fueled plant growth and sustained the lush canopy. Fossilized spores and invertebrate traces show that forest floors were teeming with activity, from tiny detritivores to burrowing mammals, forming a network of interdependent species that linked surface and subsurface layers. The forest floor was as dynamic as the canopy above. Flowering plants within the forests relied on insects for pollination, creating tight-knit ecological networks. Beetles, giant flies, and early bees transferred pollen while feeding on nectar, supporting the reproduction of both canopy and understory species. Fossilized pollen grains indicate high floral diversity, suggesting that even high-latitude forests supported intricate plant-insect interactions. These pollinators were vital to the continuation of forest life, sustaining the green Arctic through reproduction and genetic diversity. Herbivores played an active role in forest ecology. Browsing by large mammals shaped tree growth patterns, influenced seed dispersal, and maintained open spaces within dense forests. Smaller mammals, insects, and reptiles fed on leaves, shoots, and seeds, further regulating plant populations. Fossilized feeding marks and droppings reveal these interactions, showing that herbivores were not merely consumers but integral agents in maintaining forest structure and biodiversity. Predators utilized forest complexity to their advantage. Large cats, wolf-like canids, and bear-like species hunted within the canopy shadows, stalking herbivores along narrow paths and riverine corridors. Birds of prey patrolled the upper layers, while smaller reptiles and mammals hunted insects and amphibians among shrubs and logs. These hunting strategies illustrate the forest as a multi-dimensional hunting ground, where predators and prey engaged in constant movement and adaptation. Rivers and wetlands threaded through the forests, creating additional niches for aquatic and semi-aquatic species. Though already discussed in previous chapters, their interaction with the forest canopy fostered edge habitats where herbivores and predators converged. Seasonal flooding enriched the soil, encouraged plant growth, and influenced animal movement, ensuring that the forest remained dynamic, productive, and interconnected with surrounding ecosystems. The polar forests of the prehistoric Arctic were vibrant, complex, and full of life. Towering trees, flowering understory, and rich soils supported herbivores, predators, insects, and birds, all interacting in a finely tuned system. Fossil evidence preserves the vertical and horizontal intricacies of these ecosystems, revealing a green Arctic that defies modern assumptions of polar barrenness, illustrating a prehistoric world where abundance, complexity, and ecological interconnection thrived under the midnight sun. Flowers of the north, the Arctic's forgotten bloom. Beneath the towering canopy of prehistoric Arctic forests, a hidden world of flowering plants thrived, painting the landscape with colour and sustaining complex ecological networks. Fossilized pollen and seed remains reveal that flowering species were abundant, from small herbaceous plants to shrubs that grew in sunlit clearings. These plants exploited the long summer days to complete rapid reproductive cycles, producing seeds, fruits, and nectar that fueled herbivores, birds, and insects. The Arctic's green landscape was not only defined by its forests, but also by the profusion of smaller, vibrant life that carpeted the understory. Ferns and lycophytes added to the richness of the Arctic flora, occupying shaded areas beneath trees and along riverbanks. Their large fronds captured sunlight efficiently, while their dense root systems stabilized soil and retained moisture. Fossil evidence indicates that some ferns reached heights of over 2 meters, creating dense patches that sheltered small mammals and reptiles. The interplay between ferns and flowering plants ensured continuous coverage of the forest floor, maintaining microhabitats that supported diverse invertebrate and vertebrate life. Early flowering shrubs provided both food and shelter. Fossilized seeds suggest that berry-producing plants were widespread, offering essential nutrition for herbivores ranging from rodents to giant browsing mammals. Leaves and stems served as browsing material for large herbivores, while small insects and birds utilized shrubs for nesting and protection. These shrubs acted as ecological connectors, linking canopy trees to the forest floor and sustaining multiple layers of Arctic biodiversity. Seasonality drove the Arctic bloom, with rapid growth occurring during extended daylight periods of summer. Flowers opened in succession, ensuring continuous availability of nectar and pollen for insects and birds. Fossilized pollen records reveal cycles of flowering timed with insect emergence, indicating a highly synchronized ecosystem. The Arctic's extreme light conditions created intense bursts of biological activity, transforming forests, glades, and meadows into temporary but prolific centers of life. Pollinators were vital to the reproduction of Arctic flowering plants. Beetles, flies, and early bee-like insects visited blossoms, transferring pollen while feeding on nectar. Fossilized pollen grains adhering to insect bodies confirm these interactions, highlighting a complex network of dependencies between flora and fauna. Without these tiny agents, many plant species would have failed to reproduce successfully, demonstrating the intricate interconnections that sustained the green Arctic. Herbivorous insects also played a role in shaping plant communities. Leaf-chewing beetles, sap-sucking insects, and caterpillar-like larvae regulated plant growth, preventing dominance of any single species. Fossilized feeding traces indicate that plant diversity was maintained by these subtle forms of predation, which in turn fueled food webs for larger predators. The Arctic bloom, vibrant and abundant, depended on these interactions between plants and the smallest members of the ecosystem. Flowering trees, such as broad-leaved deciduous species, produced abundant blossoms that attracted both insects and birds. Fossilized flower impressions suggest that some species had intricate structures designed to maximize pollination efficiency. Birds, in particular, fed on nectar and insects visiting flowers, while distributing seeds and facilitating plant reproduction across forests and meadows. This integration of floral, insect, and avian life created a dynamic network of activity that extended from the canopy to the ground. Seasonal wetlands and marshy meadows served as hotspots for flowering plant diversity. Mosses, sedges, and small flowering herbs thrived in these nutrient-rich soils, attracting insects and amphibians. Fossilized seedbeds showed dense assemblages of flowering plants adapted to wet conditions, while trackways indicate that herbivores regularly visited these areas for grazing. Wetlands provided both sustenance and refuge, supporting an additional layer of biodiversity within the green Arctic. Fruits and seeds were not merely food sources but also agents of dispersal. Large herbivores consumed berries and foliage, spreading seeds across forests and glades, while birds transported seeds over long distances. Fossilized droppings and coprolites reveal patterns of seed dispersal that maintained plant populations and promoted forest regeneration. These processes highlight the interconnectedness of Arctic life, where plant reproduction and animal activity were inseparably linked. The Arctic bloom contributed to soil enrichment and stability. Fallen leaves, decaying flowers, and root matter decomposed rapidly, fueled by insects, fungi, and microbes. These processes recycled nutrients, maintained soil fertility, and facilitated the growth of subsequent generations of plants. Fossil evidence shows that this continual renewal created fertile patches capable of sustaining lush vegetation year after year, even under the extreme seasonal cycles of the high-latitude environment. Flowers, ferns, and shrubs together transformed the prehistoric Arctic into a vibrant, multi-layered ecosystem. Their presence supported herbivores, predators, insects, and birds, creating networks of interdependence that sustained life across forests, glades, and wetlands. Fossil records preserve the intricate patterns of bloom, pollination, and seed dispersal, revealing a forgotten Arctic in which colour, abundance, and ecological complexity flourished under the midnight sun. Swamps and marshes, hidden corners of the green Arctic. Beneath the sprawling forests and sunlit glades of the prehistoric Arctic, wetlands formed pockets of extraordinary biodiversity. Fossilized peat deposits, plant remains, and sediment layers reveal extensive swamps and marshes, where standing water mixed with dense vegetation to create unique habitats. These environments were teeming with life, providing food, shelter, and breeding grounds for plants, amphibians, insects, birds, and semi-aquatic mammals. Unlike rivers and lakes, these wetlands remained shallow and nutrient-rich, fostering species interactions that shaped Arctic ecosystems. Swamp plants dominated the landscape, with sedges, reeds, mosses, and water-loving shrubs covering vast expanses. Fossilized stems and leaves indicate dense growth, creating mats of vegetation that filtered water and stabilized soil. Flowering marsh plants produced nectar and seeds, attracting insects and providing sustenance for small mammals. The lush plant life also supported herbivorous reptiles, amphibians, and birds, making wetlands hotspots of productivity amid the larger green Arctic forests. Amphibians thrived in swampy environments, exploiting moist soils and shallow waters. Fossilized skeletons of frogs, salamanders, and early newt-like species indicate high abundance and diversity. These amphibians fed on insects and small invertebrates, while themselves serving as prey for reptiles, birds, and semi-aquatic mammals. Wetlands offered protection from large herbivores and predators, allowing amphibian populations to flourish in areas of concentrated vegetation and standing water. Insects were prolific in these marshes. Dragonflies, beetles, and giant flies emerged from aquatic larvae to pollinate flowers, feed on plants, or prey on smaller insects. Fossilized exoskeletons reveal both large and tiny species, some adapted for aerial hunting, others for navigating dense vegetation. These insects provided a vital link in food webs, transferring energy from plants to larger predators and maintaining ecological balance in the wetlands. Semi-aquatic mammals utilized marshes extensively. Early beaver-like creatures and otters fed on aquatic plants, invertebrates, and fish, while burrowing or building lodges among dense reeds. Fossilized tracks, burrows, and skeletal remains show these mammals were active engineers, modifying channels, dams, and pools. Their presence enriched the habitat for other species, creating shallow pools for amphibians and foraging grounds for birds, illustrating how a single group could shape the structure and productivity of a wetland. Birds were abundant along marsh edges, taking advantage of the dense vegetation and shallow waters. Fossilized wings, beaks, and claws indicate wading species, diving hunters, and seed-eating birds shared these environments. Seasonal nesting occurred among reeds, shrubs, and mossy hummocks, while young birds fed on insects, amphibians, and small fish. Wetlands served as safe havens from large terrestrial predators, enabling birds to reproduce successfully in a rich, resource-packed environment. Predatory reptiles also ventured into the marshes. Crocodile-like species hunted amphibians, fish, and occasionally small mammals, lying in wait among reeds or near water channels. Fossilized teeth and limb bones suggest powerful ambush adaptations, while tracks indicate seasonal movements following prey abundance. Reptiles maintained predator-prey dynamics, regulating amphibian populations and influencing the behavior of semi-aquatic mammals, demonstrating the wetlands' role as a critical ecological theatre. Flooding and seasonal water level changes shaped wetland habitats. Rising waters spread vegetation, creating temporary ponds and connecting isolated pools, while receding waters exposed nutrient-rich soils that encouraged plant regrowth. Fossil evidence of sediment layers and plant roots reveals repeated cycles of inundation and drying, which maintained high productivity, encouraged diverse plant communities, and provided dynamic feeding grounds for amphibians, insects, and herbivores. Decomposition in swamps and marshes enriched the soil and water with nutrients. Fallen plants, dead insects, and animal droppings were broken down by fungi, bacteria, and invertebrates, sustaining plant growth and supporting continuous productivity. Fossilized spores and detritus layers illustrate how these processes fueled energy flow throughout the wetlands, allowing dense plant cover and thriving animal populations, even in areas far from rivers or lakes. Swamps and marshes also acted as ecological refuges. During periods of heat, drought, or herbivore pressure in surrounding forests, animals could retreat to these wetlands, where abundant food, shelter, and water provided safety. Fossilized trackways and bones indicate that even large herbivores occasionally entered marsh edges to feed on aquatic plants, illustrating the interconnectedness between wetlands and other green Arctic habitats. The wetlands of the prehistoric Arctic were hidden corners of abundance and complexity. Plants carpeted the ground, amphibians thrived, insects buzzed in every crevice, and birds and semi-aquatic mammals exploited every niche. Fossil evidence preserves these interactions, revealing swamps and marshes as critical ecosystems that sustained biodiversity, supported predator-prey networks, and maintained ecological balance within the broader green Arctic landscape. The Arctic night, twilight, and adaptation. The prehistoric Arctic was a land of extremes, where the sun lingered above the horizon for months in summer and dipped below it for extended periods in winter. Even in a green and warm Arctic, these cycles of light and darkness profoundly influenced the rhythms of life. Animals and plants adapted to the alternating periods of endless daylight and long twilight, timing, feeding, reproduction, and growth to the unique conditions of polar seasons. Fossil evidence suggests that Arctic ecosystems were finely tuned to these dramatic cycles, with activity peaking in periods of extended light and retreating into shelter during prolonged dimness. Predators adapted to the Arctic night in remarkable ways. While summer offered near constant light, twilight and seasonal shading required acute sensory adaptations. Mammalian hunters likely relied on enhanced vision and hearing to navigate dense forests and marshes, tracking herbivores under fading light. Fossilized skulls and inner ear structures indicate that some species had refined auditory capacities, allowing them to detect movements of prey even in dim conditions. This adaptability ensured survival in a landscape where light availability could shift drastically over weeks. Nocturnal herbivores also exhibited remarkable adaptations. Small mammals, such as rodent-like species, emerged during twilight to forage on understory plants and mosses. Fossilized trackways suggest strategic activity patterns, avoiding larger herbivores and predators during peak daylight while exploiting the quieter, shaded hours. Seasonal shifts in light dictated these rhythms, forcing herbivores to optimize energy intake under conditions that would challenge most temperate species. Insects were particularly influenced by the Arctic's unusual day-night cycle. Fossilized wings and exoskeletons reveal periods of intense activity during long days, followed by strategic retreat into vegetation or soil during extended twilight. Some species likely synchronized reproductive events with light availability, emerging in swarms to exploit brief windows of warmth and sunlight for pollination and feeding. These adaptations highlight the precision with which even the smallest creatures adjusted to the Arctic's extreme light cycles. Birds, too, were influenced by seasonal light patterns. Migratory species may have timed nesting and feeding to coincide with months of continuous daylight, ensuring young had access to abundant insects and vegetation. Fossilized nests and eggs suggest nesting behavior was concentrated in areas of optimal light and shelter. Predatory birds adjusted hunting strategies based on light intensity, relying on sight during bright periods and ambush techniques under fading light. The Arctic sky, bright or dim, dictated avian behavior across ecosystems. Amphibians and reptiles utilized the Arctic night differently. Frogs, salamanders, and small reptiles retreated to wetlands, burrows, or dense vegetation during prolonged darkness. Fossilized skeletal remains and trackways suggest that some species timed activity to brief warm periods, emerging at twilight to feed on insects and avoid predation. These behavioral strategies reflect the adaptive flexibility necessary for survival in an environment dominated by extreme light fluctuations. The Arctic night influenced plant behavior as well. Extended daylight in summer allowed rapid photosynthesis, growth, and flowering, while brief winter darkness prompted dormancy or slowed growth. Fossilized growth rings and pollen indicate that plants timed reproductive cycles to match light availability, ensuring maximum seed production and survival. Even ferns, mosses, and lichens displayed adaptations to exploit both bright and dim conditions, maintaining coverage and sustaining the food web year-round. Semi-aquatic mammals and reptiles adjusted to changing light conditions by using wetlands and marshes as refuges. Otter-like mammals, crocodile relatives, and other semi-aquatic species took advantage of twilight hours for hunting fish and amphibians, reducing competition and predation risk. Fossilized tracks and skeletal remains indicate these species' synchronized activity to exploit the shifting rhythms of light while maintaining energy balance and reproductive success. Seasonal twilight created opportunities for specialized predator-prey interactions. Small herbivores emerged under dim light to forage, while nocturnal predators hunted with heightened senses, creating dynamic cycles of activity that shifted with the Arctic seasons. Fossil evidence, including bite marks and trackways, suggests these interactions were complex and finely tuned, demonstrating that life in the prehistoric Arctic was both abundant and highly adaptive. Invertebrates hidden in soil, moss, and leaf litter became especially important during periods of reduced light. Burrowing beetles, larvae, and insect eggs persisted through long twilights, emerging when conditions were favourable. Fossilized evidence of feeding traces in detritus and soil layers shows that even the smallest organisms maintained energy flow and nutrient cycling, sustaining the green Arctic ecosystem through periods of relative darkness. The Arctic night shaped behavior, ecology, and evolution across the prehistoric green Arctic. From apex predators to insects and plants, every species adjusted to the extreme light cycles, creating ecosystems that were active, dynamic, and resilient. Fossils preserve the traces of these adaptations, illustrating a world where twilight was neither empty nor barren, but a vital period that influenced life beneath the midnight sun and the dimming Arctic skies. Microbial life, soil, fungi, and the hidden web. Beneath the lush greenery of the prehistoric Arctic, an invisible world thrived, one that formed the foundation of all life above. Microbes, fungi, and other soil organisms created intricate networks that recycled nutrients, decomposed organic matter, and facilitated plant growth. Fossilized spores, root traces, and soil impressions reveal that these organisms were abundant and diverse, forming the hidden web that sustained herbivores, predators, and the vibrant ecosystems of the green Arctic. Without this microscopic machinery, the forests, meadows, and wetlands could not have supported the extraordinary abundance of life. Fungi were among the most critical architects of this subterranean ecosystem. Mycorrhizal fungi attached to plant roots, extending their reach deep into soil layers to access water and nutrients. In return, plants supplied carbohydrates and sugars, forming mutualistic relationships that fueled rapid growth and allowed trees and shrubs to flourish even under the challenging seasonal light cycles of the Arctic. Fossilized fungal spores reveal diverse species, each specialized for different hosts and soil conditions, highlighting the complexity of these underground networks. Bacteria were equally vital, performing essential roles in nutrient cycling. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria enrich soils, converting atmospheric nitrogen into forms usable by plants. Decomposing bacteria broke down leaf litter, dead roots, and animal waste, releasing minerals and organic matter back into the soil. Fossilized microbial mats and soil strata indicate high bacterial activity, creating fertile patches that supported dense plant growth and, indirectly, the herbivores that fed upon it. Microbes were the silent engineers of Arctic abundance. Decomposers, including fungi, bacteria, and microinvertebrates, acted together to maintain soil fertility. Earthworm-like creatures, mites, and nematodes fed on organic detritus, fragmenting it and making nutrients accessible to plants. Fossilized burrows and coprolites reveal dense activity near tree roots, marshes, and forest floors. These decomposers maintained energy flow through the ecosystem, ensuring that every layer, from soil to canopy, remained productive and resilient. The interaction between soil life and plants shaped forest and meadow composition. Plants with extensive fungal networks could outcompete others, while some soil microbes suppressed harmful pathogens, protecting young seedlings and maintaining species diversity. Fossilized root impressions show intricate branching patterns, evidence of symbiotic networks that sustained plant growth, even under the extreme light cycles of the Arctic. Soil was not inert. It was a living, dynamic medium that determined the structure and productivity of the entire ecosystem. Wetlands and marshes hosted specialized microbial communities adapted to saturated soils. Anaerobic bacteria thrived in oxygen-poor sediments, breaking down plant matter and producing nutrients for mosses, sedges, and ferns. Fungi adapted to wet conditions, decomposed fallen leaves and dead stems, ensuring that marshes remained nutrient-rich and capable of supporting amphibians, insects, and semi-aquatic mammals. Fossilized sediment layers and microbial mats indicate that these wetlands were hotspots of subterranean activity, as vital to ecosystem health as the lush vegetation above. Decomposition in Arctic soils influenced carbon storage and climate interactions. Fungi and bacteria transformed plant material into stable organic matter, creating layers of humus that retained water and nutrients. These processes sustained plant growth and moderated soil temperatures, buffering ecosystems against seasonal extremes. Fossilized soil layers indicate repeated cycles of nutrient accumulation and release, revealing a dynamic underground system critical to the resilience of the green Arctic. Symbiotic relationships extended beyond fungi and plants. Microbial life also supported insects and small mammals. Burrowing rodents carried fungal spores and bacteria through soil, dispersing them across habitats. Insects feeding on plant roots or decaying matter facilitated microbial growth by fragmenting organic material. Fossilized burrows and feeding traces reveal networks of interaction, showing that even the smallest creatures contributed to the microbial foundation that underpinned Arctic ecosystems. Seasonal cycles influenced microbial activity. During long summers, rapid growth and decomposition occurred as temperatures warmed the soil, while winter slowed metabolism but did not halt it. Dormant spores, resilient bacteria, and resistant fungal structures ensured continuity, allowing microbes to resume activity immediately when conditions improved. Fossilized soil profiles and root interactions reveal these patterns, demonstrating that life beneath the surface was adapted to extreme polar seasonality, maintaining the green Arctic through both active and dormant phases. Microbial life also shaped plant diversity. By mediating nutrient availability, decomposers determined which species thrived in specific soil patches. Plants with robust fungal partnerships could dominate areas, while others persisted in niches with fewer microbial resources. Fossilized root networks and soil strata show the subtle yet decisive influence of microbial life on vegetation patterns, revealing that the Arctic's verdant landscapes were crafted not only by sunlight and rainfall, but by the unseen architects below. The green Arctic owed its abundance and resilience to this hidden world. Microbes, fungi, and soil organisms formed the foundation of ecosystems, sustaining plants, herbivores, predators, and the smallest invertebrates. Fossil evidence preserves the traces of these interactions, revealing a complex, interdependent web of life beneath the forest floor and marshy soils. Without this microscopic network, the Arctic could not have been the lush, green, and thriving landscape recorded in the fossil record. The Arctic soundscape, communication and behaviour. The prehistoric green Arctic was alive not only with movement and colour but with sound. Beneath the dense canopy, across meadows and among marshes, life resonated with a symphony of calls, signals and vibrations. Animals relied on sound and behaviour to navigate the complex ecosystems, locate mates, warn of danger, and establish territory. Fossil evidence, combined with modern analogues, suggests that communication was a fundamental component of survival, shaping interactions across trophic levels and influencing ecosystem dynamics in ways that left subtle traces in the fossil record. Herbivorous mammals emitted calls to maintain contact within herds, warn of predators, or coordinate migrations across forests and floodplains. Fossilized trackways indicate coordinated movements, while anatomical features in fossil skulls suggest adaptations for sound production and reception. Long-distance calls likely carried across open glades and marshes, enabling individuals to communicate under the Arctic's variable light conditions. Herd cohesion and coordination allowed herbivores to thrive despite the presence of formidable predators, demonstrating the importance of acoustic signaling in survival. Predators also relied heavily on sound. Wolf-like canids, large cats, and bear-like species likely used growls, roars, and low-frequency calls to communicate with pack members, intimidate rivals, or locate prey. Fossilized skulls and jaw structures reveal adaptations for producing resonant sounds capable of traveling through dense vegetation. These signals were essential for cooperative hunting, territorial defense, and establishing dominance, allowing predators to efficiently exploit the green Arctic's abundant resources. Birds contributed an intricate layer to the Arctic soundscape. Fossilized beaks, wing bones, and syrinx structures suggest a diversity of vocalizations, from melodious calls to alarm signals. Birds communicated across forests and wetlands, coordinating nesting, warning of predators, and attracting mates. Seasonal influxes of birds during the long summer intensified this acoustic environment, creating overlapping layers of sound that reflected both competition and cooperation among species. Insects added to the symphony. Fossilized wing structures indicate buzzing, chirping, and droning, produced by flight and specialized appendages. These sounds facilitated mating, territorial defense, and predator avoidance. Insects' acoustic presence influenced the behavior of small mammals, amphibians, and birds, which responded to signals of prey or predator activity. The continuous hum and click of insect life provided both background rhythm and vital cues for the broader ecosystem. Amphibians and reptiles exploited acoustic communication extensively in marshes and wetlands. Frogs, salamanders, and crocodile-like reptiles likely produced calls to attract mates or establish territory. Fossilized skeletal features suggest adaptations for vocalization, including resonating chambers and specialized muscles. These sounds penetrated dense vegetation and water, allowing communication even in environments where visual contact was limited. The combination of amphibian and reptile calls enriched the Arctic soundscape with deep, rhythmic, and varied tones. Social behaviors extended beyond vocalizations. Many species displayed visual signals, posturing, or rhythmic movements to convey status, mating readiness, or aggression. Fossilized trackways, limb structures, and claw impressions provide indirect evidence of such behaviors. Herbivores might have used coordinated displays to strengthen herd cohesion, while predators used postures to intimidate rivals or signal readiness to hunt. Behavioral communication shaped interactions and maintained equilibrium in the green Arctic's densely populated habitats. Seasonal cycles influenced acoustic activity. During the endless summer days, communication intensified as animals fed, mated, and raised young. In periods of extended twilight or reduced light, reliance on sound increased, allowing nocturnal or crepuscular species to maintain social and reproductive interactions. Fossilized growth rings in trees and pollen cycles suggest a corresponding surge in ecological activity, synchronizing behavior across multiple species in response to environmental rhythms. Marshes, swamps, and meadows amplified sound, creating complex acoustic environments. Water surfaces reflected calls, while dense vegetation filtered and modulated signals. Animals adapted by varying pitch, duration, and timing to ensure communication reached intended recipients. Fossilized sediment layers with burrow impressions indicate that semi-aquatic mammals and amphibians used these habitats as both feeding and signaling zones, highlighting the integration of landscape and behavior in Arctic ecosystems. Predator-prey interactions were heavily influenced by sound. Herbivores listened for rustling, growls, and splashes, using auditory cues to detect danger. Predators honed their ability to move quietly or exploit environmental acoustics to approach prey. Fossilized bite marks and trackways suggest stalking behaviors combined with heightened auditory perception, reflecting a dynamic balance maintained by communication and vigilance. The green Arctic soundscape was a critical, dynamic force shaping life across ecosystems. From insects buzzing in mosses to birds calling across wetlands, from herbivores coordinating movements to predators signaling dominance, every layer of life contributed to a vibrant acoustic environment. Fossil evidence preserves hints of these interactions, revealing that behavior and communication were as essential to survival as food, water, and shelter, creating a prehistoric Arctic alive with the invisible pulse of sound.